الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Could you thank you for the opening prayer? Welcome to Micah once again. This is Micah, Nigeria. If you are new here, thank you for joining us, and we hope that we'll see you again. Or if you are joining us on a regular basis, also thank you for joining us. So Micah, Nigeria started in June 1994 as a result of a direct resolution at Form 1 Youth Dinner, providing a safe space for young Muslims. Our vision here at Micah is to see Muslims return to the state of Islamic excellence. And our mission is to create an awareness of Muslim and impact Islamic culture values on the Muslim for the improvement of contemporary society and in the cause of Allah. Some of the things we offer here at Micah include feeding the soul, a safe space, economic development, leadership and competency, capacity building, passion for the deen, and positive social interaction. So for today, the topic for today is Behind the Veil, rewriting the Hijab narrative. And we have two wonderful speakers that are joining us here. We have Ajara Bada and Nura Oyeko. I'll just go ahead to briefly introduce them before we start the session. So we have Nura Oyeko, is an experienced deepwater production geologist with 10 years track record of excellence working in the oil and energy industry. She's skilled in petroleum geology, hydrocarbon development and maturation, petrol reservoir management, and well planning and execution, including well site geology. Well, that's a mouthful. She's a strong research professional with environmental geoscience focus in the field of geological and earth sciences. From the Imperial College London, award-winning volunteer in SPEN, APE, and AAPG professional bodies leading teams. She's also acting as a board member and managing portfolios. She also has a master's in public policy in Islam and Studies and the Faculty of Islamic Studies. Wow. So clearly she has a lot to handle this conversation. I'll just go ahead and introduce our second speaker here, who is Ajara Bada. Ajara Bada is a nurse by training and activist by calling. As a one young world ambassador, she advocated for missing development goal in the United Nations Global Development Agenda. Alongside other fearless activists from around the world, she takes credit for the UN Sustainable Development Goal 16 Peace, Justice, and Strong Institution. Currently, she works as a system designer for Kaiser Permanente, one of the US leading healthcare organizations. She is based in Southern California, home as she balances her other obligations towards advocacy, her family, friends, and faith. She sees the ultimate calling in diplomacy, the kind where she's actually sits at table to discuss how everyone actually wins. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. May Allah reward you. Before we start, I'll just ask Zainab to launch the poll. We'll just have a quick poll for 5 minutes, and then we'll just jump straight into the session. Zainab. Okay, so the link to the poll is in the chat box, www.menti.com. So just click that link and Zainab would share the code to access. Yeah, so the code is at the top of the screen, as you can see, 59923720. So let's all just quickly do this within 5 minutes so we can jump straight into the session.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mariam, I think that with the Menti,
Yes.
I don't know if others are experiencing the same thing, but there's no, what's it called? There's no text bar to actually put in the comment. So I'm actually on the page, just so that we don't spend too much time there waiting for responses. But
Zainab, can you look into that, please?
Yeah, the same issue.
Let me see. Zainab, I don't know if you can hear me, but please can you
Can we ask people to just put it in the chat box?
Okay, yeah, that worked. Okay. Okay, so everyone, please just drop your response to the question in the chat box. That'll make it easier. I think we'll just go ahead and start the session. And if anyone wants to send any other response to the question, they can just drop it in the chat box. But we'll go ahead to start. Just to correct, I made a mistake saying that the Masters in Public Policy, this is for Sister Adjara, but I said it while I was introducing Sister Nura. So Sister Adjara is the one that has a Master's in Public Policy in Islam and Studies at the Faculty of Islamic Studies. So apologies for that, Sister Adjara. So we'll just jump right into the session. But before we do that, let's see what some of the people here think they're expecting from this session. So someone says the challenges women face when it comes to wearing the hijab. We have here about speakers' experience of wearing hijab and working in professional setting. Someone says, after today, I expect myself to be knowledgeable on hijab and able to convince Muslim ladies to wear it in a beautiful admonition. Okay, I think that's pretty much what we have here. So I'll just jump right into it. So Nora, Adra, are you guys ready? Can you please unmute your mic?
Assalamu alaikum.
Like salam. Okay, so we'll just start really easy and from like the basics. So the first question I have here is, what is your earliest memory of the hijab and what did you understand by it? So any one of you can go first. Nura, you can go first. You look like you want to talk.
I look like I'm talkative.
No, you just look like you have something to say.
Don't mind me. I'm just being cheeky. Okay, I was blessed with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much once again for the honor of bringing me back onto the Micah platform. Really, I think between myself and Ajara, this is definitely like a childhood. This is a childhood thing, you know, the whole Micah experience. So it's very difficult to ever say no to a Micah request because we all grew up, I think, watching, you know, our sisters and cousins and, you know, just basically be part of that Micah family. And so it's really an honor to be here again. I think for
an
me,
honor to have you here too.
Sorry?
Okay. Now, saying it's an honor to have you here too.
Thank you for that. So honestly, my earliest memory of the hijab is my mom. I think with you know, quite a few of us ladies that, you know, grew up in, you know, very Muslim families and had mothers who were role models, really donning the hijab. You know, we literally were born into that setting. So I remember my mom, she would mostly, and I think up until now, she would mostly wear, you know, traditional Ankara type fabric. She always tied that as some sort of gele on her head. And then she would have like a hijab, a veil, right, that she would wear over the gele and literally just, you know, drape across her shoulders. And it was always some color, right, that matched, you know, some color in her fabric or matched, you know, what she was trying to achieve. And honestly, I thought my mother was the most stylish woman in the world, right? And I have so many childhood memories of looking for a particular color of hijab, you know, to match her Ankara, or, you know, looking for the next best color, and, you know, just her seeking opinion. Do you think a blue would go, or should we make it a green, you know, that sort of thing. So as a child, I honestly thought the hijab was a style accessory, right? I just thought it was something that my mother put on and made her look even more beautiful. That made her look even more beautiful than she was in my eyes. So honestly, I have lots of childhood memories, me playing dress up, and of course always adding, you know, a stylish hijab, you know, just to look, you know, lovely like my mother did. So that really, I think, is my earliest memory of the hijab. And what I understood by it really was that it was a style accessory. It was just something you had to have on, and it made you look even more beautiful.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Sister Adra, would you want to share your own perspective on that?
I mean, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullahi Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri So, mashallah, jazakumullah khair, thank you. Everything Noura said is, I think, very true. As many of you know, we do share. I think we've been friends forever, for the most of our lives, family friends at least. Alhamdulillah. So I think a lot of what she said resonates as well on this end. Maybe one other component that I will add is that, I started wearing, we went to Crescent, right, when I was 6 or 7 is when I went to Crescent, and they had us with our little green scarves on our head. So maybe that's the first for me. I mean, of course, beyond the mothers, which I
Oh
think
my
Noura
God, I went to
talked about.
Crescent too.
Everybody went to Crescent, mashallah. Exactly. So yeah, exactly. I think apart from, our mothers who are very active in Form 1, who were our role models, Noura's mentioned that already, but it was going to Crescent and our little green scarves. And I think for me, it was more of a uniform thing, right? We had the green scarf on our head, and there was not a lot of understanding around it. So the earliest memory is that literally, the family background, but also going to Islamic school at the age of 6 or 7, and you had to make sure that your green scarf was all washed and neat on your head when you went to school in the morning. So I'll leave it as that. I mean, at that for now. I think there's a lot more to talk about, but that would be my most earliest interaction with the hijab.
So you guys never had any understanding of it being like a religious obligation? It was just accessory for you, Noura, and uniform for you?
No, I think I mean, so the answer is you're asking for the earliest memory, right? So that's the earliest memory.
Yeah, and I was asking what you understood by it. What you understood by it. Yeah,
at the time. At that time, exactly. The understanding was very cultural. Something that you wore. A lot of people wear it in whatever different ways. I think even in the African context, a lot of African women, we don't keep our, as the general African woman is covers their hair, whether they're Muslim, Christian, across cultures.
Yeah.
So you always had your head covered, even if it was with a hat or whatever it was. So I think that was the earliest thing. But of course, again, we will get to the conversation around when it started to have meaning, when we started to attribute the religious component to it.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it was just all fancy stuff and school uniform for me. That's what it was.
Okay, so next question I have is, how were you introduced to the hijab, and what was your experience with the hijab when you first started? So how were you introduced to it? Was it from your mom? How did you get into wearing the hijab, and what was your experience when you started? So Adra, I can go first this time.
Sure, I can pick it up from there. So exactly, so wore that through primary school at Crescent. And then I went to a secular, what I would call secular, but I went to Model College, Badawi. I went to a secular secondary school. So when we started GSS1, we didn't wear the hijab anymore. You wore the regular uniform. But as soon as I graduated from secondary school, when I was about 16, I took up the hijab again. And when I think about it now, it was just something I think I had family friends. Again, as you guys know us very well, many people here are family friends and close relatives. We have very Muslim, we grew up in a Muslim environment, if you may, right? So, I had a family friend who always asked, so when are you going to wear the hijab? I still remember this conversation with somebody named Bros, and I'm just going to leave it as that for those who know who Bros is. And so Bros was like, are you going to wear it? Are you going to wear it? And I was like, I don't know. And he said, just say, when Allah wills. And I remember I started by wearing like a little bandana, with longer dresses and things of that nature. By the time I took up the hijab, particularly, I actually remember the incident. It was a friend of mine. We went to school together. Her name is Sharifa. She was the Amira while I was the vice Amira when we were in school. She came to visit me and she wore the hijab, the way that I'm wearing it now, if you may. And I was like, wow, okay, that's it. And literally, I think I started wearing the hijab this way since then. It was, it was that kind of she gave me, because she was a very nice friend. She was very good. We went to school together 6 years in boarding school together. And, we're very good friends. So when I saw her wear it this way, I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to start wearing it. And that was it, literally for me. And also it helped that I have my sisters here and they're also in the audience, Latifa and Samia. They were wearing the hijab at the time. So it was also very easy to basically just join them. Sister Latifa, I have to be respectful of my sisters. So basically it was very easy, yes, because they were already wearing it. So it was something in the house already. So I picked it up and that was it. Just started wearing the hijab. And again, like I said, the dresses were longer. Not that we grew up wearing short dresses anyhow, but you can imagine, there was a little bit more consciousness about what you wore, the length of it, the sleeves and all of that fun stuff as we grew older. So I'll stop for a moment.
So it came naturally to you. It was just, you felt like you were ready and you started.
Exactly. And I said that conversation with Ross, he said, don't say whatever, just say when Allah wills. And I was like, sure, when Allah wills. And I guess Allah willed that weekend when my friend visited me. And that was that about that.
Okay, so Nura.
Okay, I've enjoyed listening to Ajara's story. I wish mine was that simple, but I think mine is a bit more long-winded. But the first thing that I want to do, honestly, is to issue some sort of disclaimer, right? So with everything I believe regarding Iman and the beautiful deen of Islam, I see everything as a journey. So I believe, right, personally, that my journey with the hijab has not exactly reached its destination, and that what I'm currently observing as hijab is only an adaptation, right, of what the hijab injunction actually calls for. So just to make it clear, that injunction is perfect, it's clear, and I wholeheartedly subscribe to it. I'm hoping that whatever it is that we discuss here today is just enough, right, for somebody to feed off the strength of what it is that I have to say and perhaps begin their journey with the hijab, right? So please don't see me at all as a benchmark. I'm not a benchmark. Please observe hijab in its proper and perfect way, right? It's very clear, right? So I really don't want to get into that, right? We had some discussion on the back end with a bros. I will use Ajarat because I thought, do I really fit this bill of somebody that should be talking about the hijab experience? But he thought that there was something to learn. So I'm going to believe in him very strongly. And to be honest, he did convince me. So
I think you do, because there's different spectrums to like women that I wear it the way you wear it. And obviously I can pick something from what you're saying. And I'm sure there's someone else in the audience that wears it the way, and it's a journey, like you said. We're not there yet, but inshallah we'll get there. But you're still very relevant. So go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so very similar to Ajara once more. I attended Crescent School, and a key element of the school uniform was the headscarf, right? So just as Ajara said, we had a green little scarves, and we wore it because everybody wanted to look neat and nice, and it felt perfectly normal because everybody else was doing it. But however, for me, I'll be very specific because I would come back home, right, and play in the neighborhood with these friends that didn't go to Crescent. And at the time that I played with them, I didn't have a headscarf, right? So it was something that we were doing primarily at the time. It felt like the mandate came from the school uniform. So very, very similar to Ajara as well. And then when I moved on to secondary school, I went to Queen's College. We had a beret that we would wear. And that sort of felt like a head covering, right? But not a hijab, not a scarf, in that sense. But it just felt like, something that you could put on your head and believe that, I was observing some sort of hijab. And as I grew older, right, at home, where, I would normally just play around without anything on my head, I remember that my father would see me once in a while and just frown, at the fact that I didn't have, weary, as we say in Yoruba, you didn't have something on your head. And I thought, it was puzzling for me initially, I'll be honest, because we'd never really had any type of sit down or discussion around, this is how I expected you to present, being my, female or my Muslim child. But I just thought, I don't understand it. Like, I'm playing around the neighborhood, but this man doesn't like me, being uncovered, in that sense. And so I soon started finding a small scarf. So just like Achara, like some sort of bandana, something to just fulfill this. And honestly, I was doing it then just to keep his frowns at bay, right? I just wanted to make my father happy. And I thought, I'll just do this, just to, and sometimes I would wear like a silky type, scarf, and it would fall, very conveniently ever so often throughout the day. Because honestly, I was not mindful of it. It was not something that I thought I had, opted for by myself. So, it was just something that I had to do at the time. But for me, I think when I left for sixth form and went to uni, was really the first time that I felt like I was fully in a quandary, right? Because there was no uniform mandate. It was me dressing up every day, and choosing to dress a certain way. And at that time, to be honest, it was the first time I was leaving home. And I really was not sure, who I really was, right? So on one hand, there'd been all these uniform mandates. There was my father primarily, of course, my mother as well, but, my father primarily just wanting me to look a certain way. And for the first time, I had to make the decision of how I physically presented to the world. And initially, I didn't start off with, I thought I'm a mainstream girl, I have all these mainstream friends, so I didn't start off, wearing the hijab, when I left home, because I just thought I wanted to fit in. It was just unfortunate, but that's how I started. And every holiday, I would come back to Nigeria, spend a good chunk of my summer. And every time I came home, I was also once again under the mandate to, wear something small, whatever it could be. And this particular holiday, I managed to keep my hijab on, all summer. And to be honest with you, to be really honest, all of this time, I really did feel like I was living some sort of duplicitous life, right? Because I wanted to be a really active member of the Imperial College Islamic Society, and I was, right? So I was playing really big roles in that space. But, I always, it wasn't really always the odd one out. But, I just always felt like, hey, how does this match, my love for the dean and what I wanted to do with it? And I'm here, not looking the part. And even when my parents would come visit me in the UK, I always also, once again, would find something small that I would put on my head and felt, that was good enough justification that I was being Muslim. So you would see me at the prayer room every day. You'd see me at the prayer room every day, wearing, praying, all of the prayers that I would pray while I was in uni. But like I said, once again, anyway, at the end of this summer, I returned from Nigeria. And for the first time, I really queried myself, right, about going back to this life without my mini hijab, right? So to be honest, I think everyone that knows me would say confidence is definitely something that I don't lack. So all of this that I was doing was not for a lack of confidence. I was really confident. We'd grown up really bold Muslims, right? We'd all been brought up to be proud of our deen. But this time I actually sat down and asked myself hard questions. So did I feel ashamed about who I was or who I should be, right, as a Muslim woman? Was it a thing of shame for me? Did I feel that I would be inappropriate, right, living, in the UK, in London at that time, with all of my non-hijabi friends, and be the only one wearing this hijab? Was I running away from my reality? Those were really hard questions to ask myself. But I felt like, what, this is your identity, and it looks like you're really working hard, right, to run away from it. And like I say earlier, I was a really proud Muslim, and I had a lot of knowledge about the deen. I just asked myself, why did you not want to physically present yourself as a Muslim woman? What is it that is stopping you? And I looked around and there's absolutely nothing. It was really just me. And I think, honestly, that set me off, right? So I bought 1,000,001 pashminas. Those were very available in the UK, in all the colors that you can imagine. And I started the journey myself for the very first time, right? So this was nobody asking me anything. So of course, in the initial stages, people ask a few questions. Is this a trend? Are you having a bad hair day? Is this African fashion? But every time I would answer, I'm doing it for my deen. I'm doing it because this is what my religion asks of me. But remember, like I say, it's still a journey. And it was really just me just trying to break, that whatever hold it was that I thought was on me. So in all, for me, it was a journey of self-discovery, right? Discovering who I was in Islam, discovering, that being physically Muslim, especially because of the way that I loved, I loved the deen, there was every reason, right, for me to want to look like that. The truth is, I started, and I say to people, I don't need people's support, right, when I start these new things in my life, but I got the support, and it really, really felt good. So I'll leave it there. There's a lot more to be said, but that was my journey. I'm sorry I was a lot longer than Ajara.
No, it's okay. It's nice to hear, obviously, different perspectives. So it's nice to have those different perspectives. I can really relate to your own experience because it was pretty much the same for me. I schooled in the UK also, so it was almost exactly the same experience. It was like, I didn't want to be physically presenting myself as a Muslim, for other reasons that you mentioned. But eventually I started, it wasn't that I wasn't confident in my religion. I had no problem with my faith. It was just, I don't want people to see me and automatically think I'm a Muslim. So I very much struggled with wearing anything on my head. Sometimes I wear it, sometimes I wouldn't wear it. If I was with my parents, I wear it. So I was very on and off with it until very recently that I've been very consistent with it. Like now I don't go out without it at all. So alhamdulillah for that. So thank you for sharing. Next question we have here is, did you face any difficulty getting consistent and comfortable in the hijab? Because it's one thing to put it on, but it's another thing to be consistent and comfortable and feel confident and feel like it doesn't make you less in any way. So, and how long and at what age did you start to feel confident in your hijab? And if you're not even there yet, if you're not yet confident in it, it's also okay. Like you said, it's a journey. So, Adra, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so I think there's something that I wanted to mention in all of this conversation, which is, the point where there was a departure from the understanding of hijab as something that was cultural, the uniform part of things, to when it became something that was just the understanding of the hijab. Because I think it's good that we have a conversation around what is the meaning of it. It's not the headscarf is literally, wallahu alam, I think it's actually the list part of the hijab, right? The hijab is not a scarf. For proper understanding of the hijab, it's a mindset, it's an understanding, it's a way of life, it's a lot of things. So putting a headscarf on your head, I mean, nuns wear hijab, if you may, right? They cover their hair.
Mm-hmm.
People in other cultures, Ethiopian Orthodox women wear something on their head, which can be a hijab, but this is not the same, if you may, right? I mean, of course, it has similar roots and similar, but it's not the same as a hijab. So I think for me, the understanding, so I took, like I mentioned, I wore the hijab when I was 16, and, since then it's been this way for the most part all my life. But I think the realization didn't come about the essence of the hijab. So there's a letter of it, like I mentioned, which is in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Women cover their head, they cover their aura, all of that, technical things, details about the hijab, we understand that. But the essence of it, right, the understanding of it didn't come to me. I think maybe until maybe around, I would say now maybe, 14 years ago. So basically much longer after I started, wearing the hijab. So this concept of something called the maqasid. What is the objective of the hijab? What is the essence of it? What is the understanding of it, right? Putting a scarf on your head and not acting appropriately doesn't really follow. And John, this is not a statement of, this is not around being judgmental. It doesn't mean you have to have perfect character before you start to wear the hijab. This is not what we're saying here, but we're saying that the scarf is actually the almost the end piece of that journey, right? It is something about submission in your heart to the will of Allah, something about understanding about how to portray yourself as a Muslim woman. How do you want the world to see you? I am a Muslim. This is what I stand for. I stand for modesty, right? This is why the hijab, as we know very well, when you wear the hijab, you should also wear proper clothing that is clean, that is nice, that is not, figure hugging or figure shaping or whatever the word is. But I think, again, we have this general understanding, but I want to make sure that in this conversation, we give room to understanding the essence of this hijab. It's a way of life. It's the way that you talk, address, and present yourself, the way that people see you. All of this is hijab, right? It's not just the physical scarf on your head. So I think just to go back to your question a little bit, when I landed I came to the US to study. I was 16 the same year, or 17 the year after. When I was at the border, when I was in New York, the border patrol officer told me to take off my headscarf so he would take a picture of me. I didn't mind at the time. I mean, now I know better that this was some sort of like maybe discrimination against me or whatever. But because I think at that time, I was like, oh, you want to take a picture of me so you can really see who I am? Okay, that's fine. And then I took it off. He took the picture and I put it right back on. And, and life moved on. I didn't fuss or whatever, right? Because I think the understanding was different. Now, with the understanding that I have, if I had it then when I was 17, no, you can't take off my headscarf. It is a part of me. It is my identity. This is what I look like. This is who I am. This is how I present. So those understandings. Anyhow, to answer your question, which I think I forgot already in all of my yapping and talking here.
So I'll just read it again. The question is, did you face any difficulty getting consistent and comfortable in the hijab, and how long and at what age did you start to feel confident in your hijab?
Right. So I think I answered that question. So even though I've wanted all along, the understanding of it didn't come until a little bit later, right? And as as I move on, even till this moment, I understand and appreciate it better because I know what the hijab is all about. I know the maqsid of it, the objective of the hijab, as Allah instructed us. I understand it now, so it's easier, for me to wear it and again to present myself as a Muslim person that wears a hijab in my character, in my speech, in the way that I engage society, because all of that is the hijab, not just the headscarf. So I'll pause there for a moment. And thank you for reminding me of the question.
Thank you.
Of course.
Sorry.
Awesome. I'm learning so much myself. But yes, perfectly apt. It's really the end of the hijab journey that really. And sometimes it's the other way, right? So there's no sense to it, right? Sometimes you start wearing it, and then the maqasid comes after, or the maqsid of it comes after, and sometimes you wait until you really have that conviction within yourself. So the question says, did you face any difficulty getting consistent and comfortable? So I'll tell you this is one of the things personally about me. One of my pet peeves in life is actually regression, right? Especially with matters of the deen, right? It really hurts and pains me personally when I see any type of regression in myself or in others when it comes to matters of the deen. So I do not like to see myself regress when I commit to something. For me, the hardest part is always committing, wholeheartedly. And I think in terms of the hijab, once I committed, at least in the form that I'm wearing it right now, I never regressed, right? So all of what I was doing before my, full commitment was doing it for somebody else. But once I had that real wholehearted, full commitment, I was doing it for myself. And I just feel like, being consistent was no longer difficult because the more questions I got, the more I felt like somebody's trying to challenge me. I'm going to give them something to talk about. I don't like being challenged. So I went full throttle and that was it. In terms of being comfortable having it on, to be honest, it didn't feel unusual for me, right? I lived in the UK. I don't remember. Yeah, I think I started wearing it, like I said, coming back home from Nigeria from summer. So I came into it in kind of the cooler, winter type months, right? So it was autumn. And so it actually made me feel nice and warm. And like I said, because I had access to all shades and colors, so it was never a thing of, I don't have something to match, something that I wanted to wear. I always had, an option for it. So yeah, I felt really comfortable. And it just felt like, yeah, this is the new me. Why not? I think at that time though, I was well in my 20s, not well, but maybe in my early 20s, right, when I started doing it for myself, right? And just agreeing to submit, as Ajira said.
Thank you so much for that. For hearing both of your perspectives. I think you guys have very different experience, but there's some similarities there also. So next question is, what are some of the factors that may have contributed to the difficulty or the ease of you wearing the hijab? I think you might have mentioned some. For you, Ajara, I think you mentioned it was just your uncle or your bros asking whether you're going to wear it, and you saw your sisters wearing it, you saw your cousin wearing it, just said, why not just wear it? So I guess that was what contributed to the ease of yours. But if you have any other thing to add to it, any other factors that might have contributed to that, you can
so thanks, Mariam. Yeah, exactly. I think, the Alhamdulillah, I've had an easier journey, really, and this is entirely, really, Allah has been merciful towards me that He has made the understanding of the religion easy for me. Alhamdulillah, I'm just able to embrace it and move on. So the only thing I would just add is I think just understanding it even more. So I took some time out of my life to study Islam a little bit, to just really understand what is this, religion all about? Why is Allah asking me to do certain things? Not because I questioned it, but because it fell upon my laps, the opportunity to really study. So I took time off, as mentioned earlier, to study, Islamic studies, not necessarily classical. I studied as what they call public policy in Islam, but I was at a faculty of Islamic studies. And I think even then I was already wearing the hijab, but the understanding again of religion, the whys, why Allah wanted us to do certain things. Why does Allah want you to be of good character, to dress nicely, to be modest? What does all of that mean? I think it just made it easier for me because I understand what the hijab means. I feel, again, everything is a journey. There is no perfect understanding. I'm not at 100 yet. I don't even know what 100 is, but just again, understanding what this is all about, what it means, makes it easier. And maybe that's what I would just add. The understanding of Islam has made it easier to embrace the hijab, as much as possible. Wallahu alam.
Thank you for sharing. Nora?
Okay, so very similar. You said it already. I think myself and Ajra were brought up in Muslim homes, right? Muslim family, Muslim community. In fact, I remember I would say to friends, I think it was when I went to uni that I would first see like a drunk person, right? All of my life in Lagos, I never came across any drunk person because I was brought up in such a sheltered and Muslim home, that I didn't know what it was, to be, high on alcohol and just not understand yourself. I was like, what is going on here? So very Muslim families. I'd gone to Crescent as well, which is a Muslim primary school. My mother wore the hijab, my sisters, my cousins. And I think for me, one thing was, like I said to you, I was really brought up as a really bold individual, right? I was very respectful of others, but I was not afraid to be who I was or who I wanted to be, right? So being bold in that perspective, really, really helped me, right, in terms of my own individual journey with it. I knew about the hijab mandate in the Quran, right? I knew it. But, for some reason, like I said, at that time, I just felt like I'm not there. I have a lot of time to get there, which is not true, by the way, for everyone listening. And for me, the part of the ease was really that I loved being Muslim, right? It gave me such a sense of pride, to be Muslim. And, I always wanted to say, I'm Muslim. It was like I had to say it every chance I got. But then, at that time, I wasn't exactly looking Muslim. So, so maybe that contributed, to me wanting to prove it to the world. For difficulty, to be honest, I had some difficulty. I think I shared a lot of that, but I'll try and summarize it now. I felt like at some point in my life, I needed to fit a mold, right? A mold that was not always defined by an Islamic ethos, right? So I wanted to be mainstream, like I say, I wanted to be a mainstream girl. I wanted to be like every college or uni going girl in the UK. I had a lot of my friends in uni at the time were Nigerians. So I identified, as a Nigerian African girl. But they were non-hijabi, right? So I thought, I would break that mold. I would be the one not to look like that. I thought I wanted to be able to live what to me was an average life. But like I said, alhamdulillah, I overcame it all myself, right? It didn't take anybody coming to sit me down and have a talk. Like I said, I don't like to be challenged. I don't know that would have ended too well. But alhamdulillah, Allah in his own, wisdom, led me to it all by myself. And alhamdulillah, like I said, it's not been regression, right? There's been no regression. But that's me.
Thank you so much. Would you say that not having someone basically explain to you the importance of the hijab or what the hijab really meant at a very young age could have contributed to you getting to the beginning of your journey with the hijab at the time that you did? Do you think if that conversation was had earlier, like if maybe your mom or your dad or someone sat you down and said, this is why women wear hijab in Islam, this is why Allah said that you should wear hijab, this is the benefits of wearing a hijab. If you understood that from a very young age, you think that might have made things easier for you?
I think honestly,
Well,
my parents.
I think that it might have for me, because I
For
feel like
you,
for me, it was more like, you just have to wear hijab because that's what we do. Just wait. And I'm just like, why should I wait? I don't like it. I'm not wearing it. But I feel like if I understood earlier that this is why you wear it, and not just because someone is forcing me. And because, with kids, when you're in your teenage years, you become rebellious. But your mom is just like, you have to do something, then you want to do the other thing. So for me, it was like, no, mommy wants me to do this. I'm not doing it. I will do it in front of her. But once I'm out of this house, nope, I'm not wearing it. But if I understood it, if I understood the benefits and the reason for why she was actually telling me to wear it earlier, it might have made a difference for me. I don't know if, do you feel the same?
so to be honest, where I was going to with this is that if there was anything that parents did, right, in terms of teaching the deen and making us understand the deen, I can tell you confidently that my parents did it, right?
Okay.
So I'm not going to give them a rap and say, you guys, there's something you missed out on. So they did it, right? I know that, both my parents did it, but maybe not in a way that really spoke to my heart, right? So they did it in the best way that they knew how, right? It's probably what your parents also did, but in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Which was,
Yeah.
they knew that, children are supposed to obey, right? So why do you need
Yeah.
a reason?
Why do you
right?
need an explanation?
Do
Just
it.
do what I said.
Exactly. So they were doing it also in the way that they best knew how for you, right? And for
Yeah.
me, they went in many steps even further. But still, like I said, you said as well, there's some sort of rebellion. I don't know whether it was a rebellion, but I feel like, yes, in a way that really speaks to your heart and you connect with.
Yeah.
If that's not happening, then, it still won't get the desired outcome, right?
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Thank you. So the next question is, have you ever faced any discrimination because of your hijab? And are there any misconceptions that you've had about the hijab in the past? So, Adra.
Oh, okay, there we go. So have I ever faced discrimination? So I think the answer, has anyone ever tried to pull off my hijab on my head in the middle of the streets of, I don't know, LA or wherever I live? The answer is no. But has there been discrimination? Maybe. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So I think, particularly for me, right, I wear multiple identities, meaning you're a woman, you're Black, right? You're a Muslim, you wear the hijab in a country where, this is a post 9/11 world. This is a country where, Black people are still trying to fight for their rights, if you may, right? I mean, George Floyd, XYZ. So there are multiple layers of discrimination that can come. So even though I haven't necessarily had anything outrageous happen to me, but sometimes, people discriminate against you, they don't want to engage with you, or they talk to you, or they engage with you in an inferior manner, right? Because of that, like, they have this nasty look on their face. They're like, oh, you're the one who's XYZ when you go and address yourself, or you're speaking at a conference. And, of course, when the bio comes, people expect somebody different to have your credentials. And then when you show up, they're like, oh, really? You're a Jara? Yeah, I am. This is me. So, you have those moments, right? But nothing that has been, I think, utterly, crazy in my face. I mean, I mentioned the CBP officer who had me take off my headscarf when I landed in New York City, right, when I first came. I mean, that can, in this day and age, that is discrimination, right? But I didn't know better at the time. I was young, I was a teenager. So what I always think about is, you're the one who sees the hijab. I mean, right now I'm looking at myself in the mirror, so I see that I'm wearing a headscarf. But otherwise, I don't see it. I feel it. Do you see what I'm saying? You're the one who sees what I'm wearing, what I look at. So I'm not necessarily faced. And I always have a positive attitude, I think, towards life, something that I think has served me well. I don't go about thinking the world hates me because I'm Black, because I'm a woman, because I wear the headscarf, even though I know that that is true for many people, right? They think differently of you, but I don't engage the world that way. So even if you come at me, I'll first think, maybe you're having a bad day. I said something to to deserve whatever bad manners that whatever, how you interact with me, maybe it's a fault of mine in the way that I also, I guess, presented myself to you, right? So I don't always just immediately think you are acting in a manner because of my hijab. If you come and tell me, I don't like you and I don't like your hijab, I mean, that's something very different. I think I've been in one conference, just to mention an example, where was a post 9/11, which is the world we're living in now. And somebody said, I was in a conference talking about building a mosque in Ground Zero. And somebody said, but you guys bombed the World Trade Center. Why would you build a mosque, close to the World Trade Center in Ground Zero in New York? And I was like, boy, I didn't do that, though. Right? I'm not that person who bombed the World Trade Center, right? So things like that. But I mean, I think that is more of a comment that was meted out to Muslims in general, not necessarily towards Ajara, because obviously I didn't, again, bomb the World Trade Center. So things like that, when you go to conferences and audiences where you speak or you engage society on behalf of Muslim women, African women, XYZ, whatever identities that I, capture with, that I hold, that's perfectly fine. But I haven't had anyone come at me, and I don't go around the world, with a very negative thing, or I'm not defensive. My default is not defensive. Wallahu alam. I'll stop for a moment.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
I love that. Oh, that's so yeah, honestly, because it's very similar for me. So to be honest, like, the same way I would say to people, I don't think I ever experienced racism in the UK. I lived there for 6 years. I honestly, I didn't, because I didn't, sometimes people talk about you channeling some sort of energy towards yourself, right? Because you're looking for it. It comes to you. To be honest, and those that have been discriminated against, this is not to say that, you ask that upon yourself. But for me, maybe it's my bold personality, like I've spoken about earlier. But to be honest, just like Ajara, I don't recall having any significant discriminatory incidents with regard to my hijab. Just like her, I remember I had a manager at work. Once I knocked her door and she opened it, she said, oh, I didn't expect to see somebody so dark. That was her.
What?
That was her way of trying to say, oh, was it, I didn't want it to be you, or, but just like Ajara, I thought, okay, maybe it's because I'm really dark skinned, right? Which of course is a lie. Maybe it's because, and just like Ajara as well, we exist in so many different intersections, right? We're women, we're Black, where, so many times you find yourself being the minority of the minority of the minority. So you can decide to focus on I'm going to cry because there's gender discrimination against men. You will have a really tough that approach. So just like I said, few people might have made a few unwanted or unsolicitatory type remarks, but never moved me. Right, just like I thought, maybe it's me. Maybe I just okay. I remember, one specific incident where I went for, it wasn't an incident, to be honest, just a minute. I went for a job interview and I was, my turban hijab. I thought to myself, would this affect the outcome? Because this was in my earlier stages of donning it. But the commentary that I received later was actually the converse. It said, oh, I was really colorful and therefore unforgettable. Right? So it was something that made me stand out. So if you're looking for a way to distinguish yourself, like people always has the hijab on, in the room. So I have experienced some discrimination being Muslim, but nothing specifically targeted at my hijab, or at least my version of it. A few misconceptions, right? Talk about misconceptions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, a few misconceptions, even for myself. I think, yeah. So the first one was that I thought that I would be unbearably hot.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Big lie. You would think that you would be hot, physically hot. You're like, that's what Christians say. Like, these are the little things, or non-Muslims or non-hijabis, as secular say. They say, it's too hot. It's a huge misconception, because the truth is, I say to people, if you are so hot, why are you still wearing clothes, right? You're wearing something, or you must be hot too with your own clothes, right? That another misconception from myself was that people would judge me and I would not be able to integrate into mainstream society. Big lie, right? Big lie, or big misconception. Let me call it that. That I had to be a perfect Muslim, right, before doing it or any version of it. I think Ajara spoke to that as well. And, you do not have to be a perfect Muslim. You don't have to have a perfect understanding for it. That I could not approach it also in a stepwise manner, right? That I could not say, okay, I don't want to go, to full throttle just yet. Where can I start? Just put your foot in the door, right? That there was something big. Another misconception for me was that it could not, exist in a professional setting or in a sophisticated setting. Another big lie, right? So look at Ajara. I remember, in the UK, she would come to me. She was way, she's older than I am, but she was way more professional than I was, at a much younger age. I think it even gives you some sort of sense of responsibility. You feel responsible because you are also carrying the image of the dean, right? In that way, so you feel responsible for behaving a certain way, for doing things a certain way. So some of those misconceptions, I think, hopefully, inshallah, we'll have more discussion around it. Last one for me is that you cannot wear the hijab and still be stylish. I think, alhamdulillah, for the world that we live in today, like the YouTube videos and access to all the markets in the world. If you wanted to start from Bangladesh today, you could get it, right? So I think all of those have been debunked, right? Because honestly, everything has opened up, inshallah, for the Muslimah that is looking to put the hijab on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you both for that. I think I really love that we have two different perspectives. Ajara has had a much easier journey, and yours, it's very important to have these perspectives and share them. So thank you once again for sharing. So the final question here, I'll just ask that while we take this question, if anyone in the audience has any question for our speakers, please just drop it in the chat box and we'll take them after this last question. So the last question I have is, what advice would you give the women that may be struggling with wearing the hijab? Or if they're new to the hijab, so any advice that you would give?
Sure. Miriam, there's something I also wanted to add to the question that was before we move to this advice question, if you may, but it's also one of the positive experiences that we've engaged by wearing the hijab, we've had. And I think Nura mentioned it too, you stand out. And sometimes you stand out in a very positive way. In a world where everybody is the same and looking, you choose to look different, or you choose to have a unique identity. Like, I'm visibly Muslim. I want you to see that I'm Muslim. And I've had some very positive experiences. So I think we shouldn't forget the times when the hijab has actually given you a positive, experience or positive outlook. I've done some work with the UN, and I remember one particular conference, somebody was like, "Yeah, we want that lady in hijab to actually talk. She can talk about Muslims, not some guy who went on a summer to the Middle East and thinks he knows everything about Islam, or took an Arabic course 101 in college, those kids, and they come and talk about Islam, or they go on a what do you call those, Peace Corps trip, right, for 2 years in some little village. And those are not the authorities. We are the authorities on our religion, on our identity, on our culture, right? And many times, the positive things, people have called upon you. People have said, imagine, mashallah, in a country where, I had the conversation too when I landed. My cousin said to me, "Oh, you're not going to last in the hijab." And I was like, really? Why? What's the big deal? Again, there's been a lot of very positive things, right? Now we laugh about it when I remind him. But again, I just want us to make sure that it's not all negatives. The hijab has brought a lot of positive experiences. You stand out, and sometimes standing out is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing sometimes, Yeah, sometimes it's not. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it is a good thing. And I want us to take credit for those moments when our identity, expressing ourselves as a visible woman, Black, hijabi, whatever it is, has brought positive to our lives. And to just quickly answer your question, so we'll give Nura the floor, is any advice? I think the one advice I would just share with anyone is have an understanding of whatever it is that you're doing. I think it makes it easier. If you know why you're doing what you're doing, no one can really, maybe, of course, you can work a little bit on your confidence, which is very important. You have to be confident in who you are, but understanding particularly around hijab, what is the maqsid? Why are you wearing it? What are you trying to accomplish? And I think it's easier, right? I'm trying to basically obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you understand the reason why you have to obey Allah, the importance of it, the barakah that it brings, let's not forget, there is blessings in obeying Allah. There's a blessing in being a good Muslim. There's enormous barakah in our lives when you worship Allah in the right way and you obey Him. Enormous barakah. And I think if you have that understanding, it makes things easier. It makes your prayers easier. We can all exercise, move up and down. But if you understand the essence of prayer, alhamdulillah, it makes your life easier. Sometimes you don't eat. But if you understand the essence of fasting, it makes your life easier. You do it with a lot of joy when you break your fast. Like, alhamdulillah, I can't imagine the reward waiting for me. So I think a lot of these things. So I would just say, whoever it is yours, just subhanallah, one thing, try to understand why you're doing it. And number two, ask Allah to guide you. That's all. Allah, make it easy for me. If this is what you want me to do, this is an injunction. A simple prayer. Ya Allah, make it easy for me, and be conscious about it. And I think it will come, like Bras said way back when. Just say inshallah at the right time. And it did come. And when it came, alhamdulillah, it was easy. Alhamdulillah. And may Allah really make the journey easy for everyone. I don't want to belittle people's struggles. And I don't want to, talk about, people have had crazy experiences and stories, and I don't want to belittle that or take away, but I want to say that there is barakah and ease and understanding, and there's barakah and ease in prayer and asking Allah to guide you and direct you and make it easy for you to practice Islam in the way that He has obligated. Wallahu alam.
Thank you so much for sharing, Nora.
I don't think I can add much to that. I think Ajara has really concluded it so beautifully. But I'll add the hadith, I think, that says that when you go take one step towards Allah, Allah comes running towards you. So honestly, searching your intention and asking yourself those really difficult questions, difficult for yourself, right? So questions like, let me quickly give you an analogy. So if I were to visit like a great monarch, say the Queen of England, I would have to dress a certain way. I would have to behave a certain way, address her in a certain way, courtesy in a certain way. And many times you find the whole world complying to that, right? If, the First Lady of the US went to like a Middle Eastern country, she would wear some small scarf, and that is them, complying with this, human being, right? So why is it that when it comes to Allah, we make excuses, right? So when it's time for us to comply with, some monarch that we want to see for a few seconds or a few minutes, everyone feels it's possible to comply, but with Allah, we make excuses, maybe because we don't see Him, maybe because His punishment is not instant, you don't get a knock on your head for doing something. We just think, Allah will forgive me when I eventually get to Jannah, like I didn't do it. But the truth is, the reason for it, if it is truly to please Allah or to seek His pleasure, take one tiny step and you'll see the difference that it will make in your life, right? All of those little excuses. I tell people, now that we've lived in a COVID-19 world, we realize that the way that the boundaries that we thought existed in the way that we lived our lives are all sham, right? There was a time when in even parts of England, like you couldn't wear a niqab, right? Some institutions, I remember Oxford University banned a niqab, but now people are wearing masks and wearing a hijab. It's so. So the truth is, a lot of the points that we see, right? I think we've seen that they can be deconstructed, right? That we can all, turn them to fluff. At the end of the day, we want to live, this life for ourselves, for our truth, as a lot of people say. So seek Allah, and Allah will seek you in many more ways. You stand out positively. I think standing out positively for worldly gain is the littlest thing about it. But I'll tell you that honestly, every time you have a hijab in a setting, if you were ever to do like a photo shoot for your organization, they will definitely call you. Because everyone's trying to demonstrate that they're being diverse. They're trying to, demonstrate diversity and inclusion and things like that. But that's the littlest part of it. But trust me, there's no shame in wanting to be yourself. And the hijab does not in any way hold you back from who you are as an individual, right? It will never hold you back. It's everything. It's one dimension to you. It gives you a sense of responsibility. You're holding some image to your deen. Reminds you of who you should be, right, when you're wearing it. But it will never hold you back, right? It will never hold you back in terms of your professionalism, in terms of what it is that you want to achieve yourself. The hijab will only be a platform, right, for you to stand on. So may Allah make it easy for even myself, right, to further my journey, right, along in the hijab path. May Allah make it easy for every single person that is thinking about it, needs a little nudge or anything of the sort. But may Allah to make it easy for those that He has made it easy. So Ajara, myself, and anybody else. And if you do encounter difficulties, please, say something, right? Speak to somebody, speak to Micah. There's a lot of help that is out there that you can definitely leverage from. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much for that. Before we jump into the question, I just wanted to highlight something that Adra said previously that she didn't mention in the advice that I thought was very important. When she mentioned that the scarf is the end of the hijab, basically, and that you can work towards the hijab by doing other things, by working on your mindset, by working on how you dress in general. Before you, if you're struggling getting to putting on the scarf, you can start by doing all those things and eventually grow to that point. I just felt like that was important to highlight that because you mentioned that earlier, and I basically just wanted to bring that up again for you. So thank you. I'll just jump straight into the question section. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, can you please drop them in the chat box? So the first question I have here is, can the speakers talk about their Nigerian experiences too? So this question is very clear. Nigerian experiences regarding what? Please, can you just clarify what that question means? So I'll take the second one we have here is, the hijab is a cover to cover our beauty and whole lot more, but you find hijabis in makeup, dancing publicly, and wearing revealing clothes. Are these parts of hijab as well? So I think what she's trying to say is the hijab is beyond just wearing a scarf, but you see hijabis nowadays in a lot of makeup, dancing publicly, wearing revealing clothes. Is that also part of hijab?
So Mariam, let me try to comment on that a little bit. And I think, this is obviously what we see, right? What that stems, where that comes from, I think, is this thing that we talk about here. And I don't want to use the word a lack of understanding more than a journey in understanding, right? So the journey is, for some people, the headscarf or the hijab is literally that piece of cloth on their head. So regardless of how else they look, because they don't understand that the hijab is a lot more than that, right? It's about modesty, right? Then then they don't understand that maybe the heavy makeup and all of that and the tight fitting clothes do not necessarily follow the hijab. And again, we have to be very careful that we're not judgmental, because everyone is on a journey. And this is why understanding is important of it. I will mention something, and I think we haven't had the audience yet, or maybe the right atmosphere, but let me see if I can plug something in here. So you know that the injunction for the hijab is around what we call the people that are non-mahram, right? So for example, the people that are basically for us as women, people that are marriageable, if you can marry somebody, you should observe the hijab in front of them, right? That's a very quick and very, very strict, very quick, if you may, understanding of the hijab, right? But the essence of the hijab, when you go to the letter of it, so the letter is put a scarf on your head in front of, cover yourself or be modest in front of people that are marriageable to you, right? But it doesn't mean that in front of your uncle who you can't marry, you have to wear tight-fitting clothes. Because in the end, the essence of it is that you want to preserve your modesty. You know what I mean? So these heavy makeup, if somebody has to take a second look at you, if you look vivacious, XYZ, whatever the words are they use now to describe it, that defeats the purpose of the hijab. So even in front of your uncle, your brother, your parents, or whatever, generally, again, when you understand the concept of the hijab, you should be modest. You don't have to, expose your aura because you're allowed, right, in a different sense in front of people who are not. So I think, again, the answer to that is people are on a journey of understanding. And if you understand that the hijab is not just a scarf, it makes it easier for you, right, to not wear the hijab and then compromise its essence with the rest of everything else. And again, I want to be careful about being judgmental about people's journey, understanding Islam is not about looking not beautiful. Let's be very careful. Our religion is beautiful. We should present ourselves well. You should look nice, presentable to people. But I think there's a very fine line, if you may, right? The heavy makeup, all of that, maybe not. But it doesn't mean that, you have to totally not look presentable. Let's also be very, very cautious about that we have a good understanding of what our religion asks of us. I think, Nora, maybe you have something to share.
No, subhanAllah, Ajra, I think you've done such a good job of answering that question. It is a journey. I see that there's a lot of trolling, right? On the internet these days, everybody knows better than the last person. And, so people would, go at people So let's be careful not to turn people away from Islam. There is, like I say, what is right, and sometimes it's very clear, very there. Sometimes you have all of the knowledge, but something within you just chooses not to subscribe to it at that time. It does not mean that person later would not be more dear to Allah than you are to him. At some point in their life. So just be careful, not be too judgmental of other people. Remind them if you can, in some sort of endearing way. I see even the greatest scholars, people question things that they do on social media. Mostly men could question again and again, they insult him and say he's doing this and he's a shame. And, realizing that it's a journey and not pushing people away. So if you have somebody that's in a miniskirt and just feels like she wants to branch into the mosque, give her something to cover up, but don't shame her, for coming in, because that is her journey to Allah. That is Allah, running to her, having someone like you encourage them. But I think the encouragement is key. Don't people shame them, for not knowing enough. Like I said, injunctions are clear. We sometimes know them all, but for some, human reason, we choose not to subscribe all of the time. But I think Ajara has said it all by saying there's an essence to the hijab that is more than just the covering, and that's, we should be seeking, right, and not just stopping at just putting something over our heads, but just seeking the essence of hijab. And inshallah, it will get better for every single person every time. And just also remembering that being on a journey means you cannot be static. You have to keep learning, you have to keep improving, you have to keep looking for that better version of yourself, right? So don't sit somewhere and say, I'm on a journey. Bros, you've been on that. That's part of your journey for like 10 years, So move it up, move it along, quickly. But that's it for me, really.
Thank you both for sharing and responding to that question. Okay, so the lady that was asking about the Nigerian experiences made the question clearer. So she's asking about your Nigerian experience wearing the hijab, interacting with fellow sisters and people in authority. Because I think you've both spoken about it from your experience while you were studying in the UK and your experience living in America. But before you left the country, what was your experience in Nigeria?
I'll share it. I think Nora, you live in Nigeria. Maybe I can share a little bit from my trips, just very short. But maybe this is more for Nora. But I think people have this. People say Alaja or Eleha. They try to all of a sudden they have a name for you and all of that, and they characterize certain things about you and something like that. What has been my experience? Not necessarily anything negative. I don't like anyone calling me Eleha, because I'm not, but also because I think sometimes they use that term in a derogative manner, if you may, right? Like Eleha or something, Eleha Kuro Legbe or something funny like that. And it's like, or, Eleha or Monkokon, Kilem or whatever, they try to, discriminate against you, if you may, sometimes, right? But I in as much as I don't like that, I don't also let that faze me. If you may, because I think I am confident in my hijab. Maybe in other areas, but I'm confident in what I'm wearing. I'm confident in the essence of it. So for the most part, it doesn't bother me. I think, I feel like sometimes when people look at you is one thing, but when you open your mouth, it's something else. So if my looks don't impress you, I will open my mouth and tell you who I am and share with you whatever the experiences are. And maybe hopefully from that, you can have an understanding of, I'm not, whatever you thought about it or whatever, way you thought about me as an impression, whatever it is you think in your mind is not the case. If I'm in front of you and I'm engaging you, if my looks don't impress you, and I don't mean that impress, forgive that term, but I think you understand what I mean. I will open my mouth and I will engage you in whatever it is I've come to engage you with, and that should be good enough. Otherwise, I don't have much more to offer than what I've come to engage you with. If my hijab, if you don't like what it looks like. But I'll let Nura talk. You live the reality every day in Nigeria, so maybe you have a different perspective.
Oh, yes, indeed. No, Ajara has said it. Nigeria tries to put everybody in a box. sex, right? They talk about mola, they talk about, like, we're not the only ones that try to, be put in a box. But, just like Ajara as well, I'm not exactly, I don't get fazed by it, right? At work, everyone will call me Alaja. And like I say, sometimes it becomes a responsibility on you, right? Because you don't expect that the person that is calling you Alaja is going to see you on a nightclub table somewhere, or that, you're going to behave in a way that is, Alaja, so maybe it might serve as a reminder for those that are clearly derogatory. Speak up against it, right? Speak up against it. Honestly, if you don't like it, then say, please don't, And just like Ajara said, a lot of it is also in who you are as a person, right? Because if people see you to be an intelligent, well-spoken, professional Alaja in her ways, then, the Alaja part of it is less important for them. It's like, wow, hey, Ajara is a very intelligent, girl, or a very intelligent Alaja if you want, but, at the end of the day, there's a lot more qualities, right, that define who you are as a person. And it's not just your hijab wearing, part of you. So in Nigeria, yes, it's people are less, it's probably cruder, if I can use that word. People are crude about, wanting to just say what comes to mind. But I think that, take yourself away if you can, physically, and in many ways, take yourself away from those types of settings voluntarily, if you can, right? If it's a work setting that is supposed to be professional, seek counsel, and see how you can make it stop. If it really becomes a thing of, harassment, for me, because of the setting that I'm in as well, so once again, plug yourself in a type of setting where, you feel comfortable to be who you want to be, find yourself doing things that, people respect your hijab and would not make it a thing of, yeah. But in terms of the Nigerian setting, I think it has never done anything to me. If I notice people looking at me, it makes me even bolder, carry my shoulders. Say, oh, they're looking at me, let me carry my shoulders, So yeah, that's my experience so far.
Thank you both for responding to that. I think it's very important. I can see that someone in the comment section mentioned the effect of the media and how they portray Muslim women also. So that might be an effect, cause an effect. And when people automatically meet you wearing an hijab, they have a perception of you, which is like what both of you have said. It's very important to work on who you are outside. I mean, the hijab is part of your identity, but it's just one part of it. Like, there's so much more to Ajara, there's so much more to Nora behind the hijab, like the topic says. So, I mean, once people get to know you, outside your hijab or with your hijab, or know other things about you outside you wearing the hijab, obviously, you guys have done really impressive things. There's no way that, and once you're confident in yourself also, you don't allow those negative things to get to you. So I'll just see if there's any other question here, and if we don't have any others.
Miriam, somebody asked me a question privately. If you let me just share a little bit of thought on it. I apologize.
Yeah, can you read the question out so we all know what the question is before you answer?
Somebody who knows me privately and wanted me to share a positive experience I had with the hijab, maybe sort of as an inspiration. And I forgot about the story, so thank you for the reminder. So I guess before I share, I'm just going to say something like, think of the most amazing thing that you've done, right? And that people have thought, mashallah, how amazing. And imagine you had the hijab on your head at that moment, right? And if you did, alhamdulillah, I agree. But if you didn't, imagine that. That's like a great dawah moment, you know what I mean, for you. Like, imagine you stood in front of, the valedictorian, the smartest kid in class, the best in, WIAC or whatever it is, or the best in your faculty. I always think of, and her name skips me right now, the lawyer who she was denied the bar, right? The first time was denied the bar because of the hijab. And look at all that great publicity that came. Ilyasa, I think it's her name, please forgive me. I think people know about the hijab rights advocate, that lady who graduated, and mashallah, the positive image that she has brought to the hijab from doing really well in law school. But my experience, so it's funny, I was on a flight from somewhere, I think Zurich or whatever. I was coming down to Firdaus. Thank you so much. Her name is Firdausa Amasa. For those who know her, like, mashallah, imagine that, journey of just really representing Islam really well as one of the smartest, graduates of law in the country at the time. But anyhow, my little story that the person wanted me to share, I was on a flight. I think I was coming back home to San Francisco at the time from Zurich. I was taking a nap where I was sitting in the plane, and somebody announced if there was a medic on that flight, right? To help out. I think one older gentleman wasn't feeling really well. So the guy was in business class, I was in economy. So I came up front and I said, I went to the lady, to the flight attendant, and I said, "Oh, I am a nurse, I can help out." And I saw the look in her face. She was just like, "No, don't worry. We have a doctor in the business class who's going to help." So I literally went back to sleep. I was taking a nap and I went back, and lo and behold, later on I heard through the announcement, can that nurse in economy class, they even said that, the nurse in economy, thank you very much, can you come back, help out? Basically, the doctor couldn't help the patient out. We had to put in an IV and get him hydrated, and all of that fun stuff before we landed in San Francisco at the time. And when I think about it, alhamdulillah, it makes me really proud. Like, alhamdulillah, even though, of course, it started out in a very funny way, because the nurse, the hostess looked at me, I was like, really, like, who are you? We don't need you. We have somebody who can help. And then later on, Allah honored me by asking me to come and help. And I just felt incredibly proud of myself. Like, when the flight came, they thanked me. When we landed in San Francisco, they thanked me. Here I was with my hijab on a plane, saving, and I put that in air quotes, right? Saving a white man, literally. And I with all humility, I say that, but really an honor from Allah. It was a very amazing dawah moment for me, you know what I mean, to help a passenger on a plane, to be recognized on that flight. And so I think, again, I mean, and that's the extent of the story. I hope I did a good job, the person who wanted me to share that story. But I just think, like, alhamdulillah, like, there's just so much beauty. Imagine if I did it as a regular nurse or somebody without my hijab. There's nothing wrong in that. But I can't imagine people, on that plane not thinking, oh, mashallah, this is a Muslim woman, whatever it is they thought. And I obviously I didn't do it because of that. I am a nurse. It is my calling to help out whenever I can. But I just felt extra proud of myself. I must confess that I was a Muslim, again, on that plane, a Black Muslim woman who saved a white man. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. That's it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have about 7 minutes left, but I'll just take the last question here and we will round up. So there's one question. Someone says, Assalamu alaikum. I think the main point from the discrimination of the hijab is more with children in the public schools and institution. Every time there's a registration of any kind, the Muslimah is discriminated against. How do younger kids deal with this? So any of you can answer this question if you have anything to say to it. So I think the main question here is, how do younger kids deal with discrimination? Younger Muslim children deal with discrimination in schools.
I don't know. Ajara, do you want to have a go at it?
Let's see if I can have a thought. I'm not sure I really grasp the question, but let me see what I can answer from what I understand. So I think, of course, it is a responsibility of, if we're talking about younger children in school, it is a responsibility of administration to make sure that our children are not discriminated, right? I think if you are in, I don't know, secondary school or primary school, I think the administration should take responsibility for protecting our children, making sure. And I know that there have been cases of, I think, maybe school students who are not allowed to take their WAEC exam or something like that because they wore the hijab. I think that's very wrong. I think people should stand up for that. The hijab, literally, in the end, it's the piece of cloth on your head does not stop you from being able to engage society. So I think all of that is not right. And that is a job of administration and government to ensure. I think if you have children who are in public institutions where the institutions may not necessarily be religious or Islamic in nature, I think you need to have conversations. Exactly, somebody's saying that right now. I think you need to have conversations with your children, build their confidence, let them understand who they are, their identity. If there's a teacher who wants to discriminate or whatever, make sure that they stand up against that. I think I have one little tiny story when I was in boarding school, my house mistress, and maybe I should be very careful about the intimate details of this, but I think she had little issues with me and when I would pray and all of that. And, one day I think she was like, Bada, I'm calling you. And I was praying and I was like, obviously I didn't answer her. And I think she was upset, but it's like, I'm praying. I can't answer you when I'm praying. Or she asked him to go call me and I would be praying, and I think she had an issue with that. But alhamdulillah, I think even at that young age, I was confident enough to say, excuse me, ma, I don't know what to tell you, but I was praying. I cannot get off from my prayer to answer you, whether you're in front of me or you've asked a student to come and call me. So I think we'd have to have this kind of conversations with our children, to know their rights, to understand their religion and stand up. And if there's any discrimination, just tell your parents and tell the administration. And I think for people who are in power, people who make policies, make sure that our institutions, our secondary schools, our primary schools, that they're able to accommodate, different kinds of students. They're able to have their identities. We have the morning prayer in school, in some schools, a Christian morning prayer. Why can't we allow our Muslim students in those schools as well to also, wear the hijab if their parents choose to have them wear it at that very young age? There's nothing wrong in that. And I think we should protect our children in those institutions. Wallahu alam.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for Nora, do you want to add anything?
Yes, please. So this is a very sad reality, I believe, in Nigeria. Maybe this is the Nigerian perspective that one of the speakers spoke about, right? Where indeed there's not much of an opportunity for some people, right, to get the platform to really shine through the hijab. Right. So what that means, or what I mean by that, is to say that you're trying to suppress, the coming population from even deciding that they want to don the hijab, because they're looking at their seniors and they're saying, oh, this guy that, they made him kneel outside, the YA classroom for 3 hours, because, or this lady that, faced that, I'm not going to do it, and, I live in a family that doesn't mind if I do wear the hijab or not. But the truth is, at this juncture, I think there is a lot of, and we know that administration in Nigeria is a very poor thing, all the way from, the government, up, down to, the schools and, whoever is supposed to be responsible for you. But I just want to say here that there are avenues, right? And that's what we need to keep mindful of, right? That every time that you face some sort of discrimination, speak to Micah, let's do it directly now. Speak to Micah. There's lots of organizations that are together fighting this discrimination that a lot of people face in Nigeria. So there's a lot of stuff that is going on in the background that they might not come out to say for whatever reason, but don't shy away from going to tell somebody your experience and saying, this is what I'm suffering. Do you think I can get help somewhere? So seek help. Your school administration might not give it to you, but speak to somebody else. I had some sort of discriminatory issue at work, right? Whereby I work for a multinational. I didn't expect to experience that. So basically they used to have a morning prayer in the office. And it used to happen in my own office. Such that I had to exit every time, that prayer was to start. And the manager saw that could easily be something that I would, speak up against, or something that would happen. It would be a clear breach, right, on her part. The fact that they had to basically displace me every time I went. I was very new in the organization at the time, and I spoke with members of the Islamic Society. And, everybody had a different way to tackle the issue, but I got a lot of help that way. And subhanallah, I started off working in Port Harcourt. I don't know if anybody or this girl has ever worked or been in Port Harcourt, but there are parts of Nigeria that are even less. If you think the Yoruba people are bad enough for calling somebody Mola or calling somebody else Eleha, go to other parts of the country where I saw people that said to me, I've never met a Muslim. I was like, whoa, I can't help you because
wow.
I'm not going to take you to where, yes, that's how bad it is in some parts of the country. And that's where I was. Right. And subhanallah, that problem that I had with this manager that started off as them discriminating against me ended up as me being moved back to Lagos, right, which is where I initially wanted to be. Right. So Allah sometimes, so sometimes these things start off as it's some discrimination. Don't sleep on it. Please say something to somebody about it, right? Be careful, be strategic in the way that you try and, and solve that situation. But one of my personal ethos in life, I don't keep quiet, right? I don't go shouting around like a mad woman, but if I have a problem, I definitely seek solutions, right? And I would just say it sometimes casually to people, but look for help. And subhanallah, in looking for that help, you might be getting, the greatest spotlight you ever got on your life, right? It might start from discrimination, and you find that, somebody is sponsoring you as a student somewhere, and all of these opportunities being opened up for you just because you were the one that chose to speak up. So if you want to do it anonymously, please use that route. If you also want to do it in a way where you present yourself forward, don't ever be shy of that, because this is one of those things where in the hadith where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there will come a time when holding on to your religion will be like holding on to hot coal. So indeed, it's more difficult for some. The timing sometimes is also, it doesn't work for some, but hold on to it, because wallah, it pays off. It really does, always, it will always pay off. So speak up about it. Speak to even people that you think, they will never have the answer. Speak up about it. You'll be surprised it will lead somewhere, right? So I won't belittle it. It's a big thing. It happens to people. It's real. We've overshot our time. I'm going to be quiet.
Thank you. I think I'm just going to add something. There's a comment here in the comment section where someone says, I think parents need to focus on the confidence building in the children. That helps them stand up for themselves when you're not there, which is very important. For example, what Ajara was saying, that she so a teacher was calling and she was praying, and that's because she's confident in herself and in her religion, that she can tell that teacher even at a very young age that I don't know what to tell you, I was praying. Most children can't do that, because once you're much, especially in Nigeria, when you are talking to someone that's much older and they're someone of authority, you feel the need to to kind of make yourself smaller because they're older and they're in a position of authority. But having that confidence and being confident in her religion was why she was able to say that at the time. And yeah, just wanted to add that because that was an important comment that I noticed. So thank you, Ellie, for that. So just before we have the closing prayer, Zainab, can you launch the poll to round up this session? So we'll just have a poll asking people what they picked from this session. So like we did in the beginning, just drop your answers to the question in the comment section.
Ma'am, do you have the link to the Mentimeter?
No, I don't. Okay, so it's in order that we don't waste time.
I apologize. In the comment section, not the Mentimeter.
Yeah, in the comment section. In the comment section. So yeah, just drop your responses to this question. What are your key takeaways from this session in the comment section? We're just going to do this quickly in about 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I'll just allow for one more minute and we'll wrap up the session. So I'll read out some of the answers we have in the chat box. So someone says, having confidence in the deen is key. Building confidence in our children and learning to speak out always. How to route your grievances and get help when you face discrimination. This is a much longer one. Someone says, what I've gained is that I have gotten a stronger reminder that our excellence in who we are and what we do help to bring us on a higher pedestal as Muslim women who identify themselves as such. My key takeaway thus is the confidence of Sister Nura and the comment of Sister Ajara, that if people are initially taken aback by my appearance, what I say and how intelligently I put myself across would put paid to their fear, discrimination, and stereotype. Okay. Thank you all to everyone in the audience that's responded to this question. I'll just close the poll now so we can round up the session. Zainab. Zainab, can you close the poll now? Stop sharing your screen, please. Okay, I just want to say a big thank you to Ajara and Nora for joining us today. You guys have been fantastic speakers. You've shared a lot, your personal experience and shared a lot of gems here. I personally have learned a few things from both of you. So I pray that Allah rewards you, Allah continues to guide you and guard you, Allah increase you in knowledge of the deen of this world, make you stronger women, Muslim mothers, sisters, every position that you are holding currently and that you will hold in the future. May Allah continue to uplift you. And Jazakumullah Karen for joining us. May I just ask if one of you can say closing prayer for us, and we'll end the session at that. So any of you can go, or both of you.
Prayer us?
Yeah, any of you
Yes.
can give us a closing prayer.
Okay, I thought you were asking. Okay. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا إنك جامع الناس ليوم لا ريب فيه إن الله لا يخلف الميعاد ربنا توكلنا وإليك نبنا وإليك المصير اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ينفعنا وزدنا علما من عندك ولا please increase us, benefit us in what you've taught us. Teach us only that which will benefit us and increase us in knowledge. Forgive us our sins. Have mercy upon us. Make the understanding of the religion easy upon us, Ya Rab, and make it easy for us to practice and worship you in the best of manners. Do not take us to task for what we've done wrong in our understanding, based on our understanding. Make it easy for us, increase us in knowledge, increase the love and bond amongst us, increase the bond of sisterhood and brotherhood amongst us, and make things easy for us, inshallah, Ya Rab. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم في العالمين انك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم في العالمين انك حميد مجيد سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر ان الانسان لفي خسر الا الذين امنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Ameen. Thank you so much for that. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye, Noura.
Thank you.
Noura. Take care. Bye.
Thank you to the audience too.
Thank
you to everyone that joined us today, and we hope to see you next week.
Inshallah.
On the next session. Alaikum.